If you're watching this video, that means you read the title, that means you already know what it is on my desk that I'm getting ready to unbox. I've got the InSwan INS Flip 4. This is the fourth document camera from my very favorite camera company, InSwan. I've opened up every one of their cameras in the past. I bought InSwan INS 1 for myself, InSwan 2, 3, and now the Flip 4 they have sent to me for the purposes of making these videos. First thing out of the box, we've got ourselves a quick start guide. We've got our Flip 4, and check that out. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That is absolutely crazy. That's the camera, guys. That is the Flip 4. Wow. And last thing out of the box is a little velvety pouch to hold it in. And yeah, now starting on the top of the unit when it is closed, now we got our InSwan logo right here. This right here is the camera housing. It does have a slide to cover up the lens. This little hole right here, that would be the microphone, and this right here is the LED light. It's called the Flip because it does indeed flip up and flips around. On the top here, we've got our autofocus button. We've got our brightness buttons here for increasing and decreasing the brightness. And here in the middle, that is the button to turn on the LED lamp, which of course was flip right there. Here in the bottom part of the unit, we do have our USB cable. It is USB-A, and it is actually in there very nicely. So yeah, it just wraps around right there and snaps into place. So whenever you're done with it, this thing is super portable. Just close it back up there. Close this back up and flip that back down. Very, very nice. I'm like super impressed with the design here. But, you know, design's only part of it. Let's check out the functions. And as I prepare to plug this thing in for the first time, I would like to say the cable here is, gosh, just over 2 feet long. And what you're seeing now is default right out of the box. Plug this in, and I am recording through OBS. You can see that it does automatically change the exposure settings depending on what's under it, and you can see you can actually read all of this just fine the way it is. I'm actually really impressed with this. I am going to turn the brightness up a little bit so you can see that adds to the exposure. And now it's a much cleaner looking picture there, especially on this page. So this is a, gosh, will that be A4? No, this is about legal size. So yeah, you can fit a full document on here. I'm going to adjust my angle a little bit. And that is one of the really nice things about this Flip here, is you can adjust it in so many different ways. Check that out. So yeah, we got all of our instructions there that we were looking at, and on the back here, it does mention the Documate software because this has software. This is one of the few document cameras being made now in this price range that actually does have software. And it's really good. And I can't wait to check that out in a few seconds here. And this is the software, the Documate software that InSwan provides for their InSwan document cameras. It is proprietary. It does only work with InSwan's cameras, but it works with the 1, 2, 3, and the Flip 4. Right here up in the top corner, we've got our live button, which is what you're seeing now. Everything you're seeing is happening as I am saying it. Next to that, we've got a playback button, so you can record. There's a little button right there that lets you record videos, and you can play them back in here. Right here, we've got our drawing tools, a drawing mode, which basically freezes everything, and you can draw all over it using the tools that are right here. Next up, we've got our scan mode, so scan a single page, scan several pages, and right here you can scan QR codes. We've got our eraser tool, we've got back, we've got redo, we've got our still screenshot, snapshot mode, and here's a snapshot I took of it right here. Yeah, I'm beautiful. Right here, we've got our import an image file, so you can do sort of a split screen with an image over here and your live working thing over here, or you can just insert an image and draw all over it like you normally would. Next button is export your drawing, so it'll save whatever you have drawn all over this. Right here are your basic settings. You've got your brightness right here. You've got your rotation, so you can rotate it every which way. Let's demonstrate that now. Whoa! Whoa! Yeah. So if you're going to use this as a webcam, you could flip it up, then flip, and now you're back to normal. We've got our freeze button here. You can see, you can't see nothing because it's frozen. And there I go, I can move again. And right here we've got our snapshot tool. It just takes a picture every however long you set it. So yeah, you've got minutes and hours and all of that stuff. And over here, these are all of the drawing tools, and these are all of the settings for the drawing tools. I'm going to go ahead and do some adjustments right here. Let's go ahead and make this into yellow and make it a light yellow so it can be like a highlighter. And on opacity, I'm going to change that to, about right there. So it's barely visible. That way, whenever I draw and have something that's highlighted, it'll be easier to see. So basic drawing tool. Yep, got your blue right there. You can see blue is selected down here. You can change your line width right here to make it nice and thick. If you don't like it, go over here and use the erase button. And if this is too slow for you, you can always go to the erase the entire screen. But if you really liked it, you can always undo and bring it back. Yeah, I don't like it. We got our line tool. So basic lines. And what I like is as long as you're still there, you can kind of move things around. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Pretty. We've got our arrow tool. So you can say, hey, look at that. Would you look at that? Yes, look at that right there. Got our square drawing tool. And you can see it is kind of filled in with that yellow. I'm going to go ahead and change that just a smidge. Make it a little bit. There we go. Now it's definitely something that you can see is highlighted. Also going to change the size here, make that nice and thin, because, yeah, we just kind of want that box to be a box and not a big blob. And yes, you can move that around. You can move it around the page, kind of highlight the different things you're talking about. It's a really good tool. Of course, you've got your circle tool that does the exact same things, and you can do the exact same things with it. Got your text tool so you can type, and it works just fine. Selection tool, so you can select those things that you've put up there. You can cut it, and you can move them around wherever you want to move them to. And you can add new layers, because why not? And down here in this corner, we've got our autofocus button. You can see it was pretty quick. You've got your zoom out, and you've got your zoom in. And you can see with the crazy camera on this, you can zoom in very, very nicely. And what you're seeing and hearing right now is the default out of the box, plugged it in and flipped it up, hence the Flip 4. And this is 1080p recording in OBS, and you can see it's not quite 30 frames per second because for some reason, when OBS is interacting with these document cameras, it just cannot pump out the lead. But this is the default audio and default video when you've got no studio lights, you're just sitting in your office. Now, one thing I really want to do before I get into the final review part here is you're able to actually move this camera down really low and keep the clarity. So I'm going to go down to about 3.5 inches away from this phone case. You can see there, it's a little bit blurry, but let's push that autofocus button. And there you go, you have perfect focus there. Let me scoot this a little bit over here. All right, so there's the back of my phone case. Let's do some zooming in. I'm going to move it over here so we can see more of that. Okay, now let's actually zoom in using their software here. That's crazy. Look at that little... Where is it? Oh my gosh, it's that right there. I can hardly see that little speck with my eyes. That's great. Wow. Okay. Can I actually touch it with my finger? Look at my finger. That's gross. Wow. I did not realize you could zoom in that much. That was pretty crazy, and I am extremely impressed with the camera on here. So I'm going to take this thing to work with me, and I will get back to you in about 4 days, but for you, it's going to be in 3, 2, 1... And here we are, it's Friday. I've been using this at work for 4 days straight, and I am pretty impressed with it. This is definitely going to replace my INS-2, which is what I've been using for several years. I did replace the INS-1 with the INS-2, and now I'm replacing the INS-2 with the INS Flip 4. And I've got very little negative to say about it. Let's start with the positives. I like the compact size. This is tiny. It's very, very lightweight. It's got this bag that kind of keeps it protected when I'm carrying it around, and that's something none of the other InSwan cameras did, so I like that a lot. I can take this anywhere and connect it up to pretty much any machine. It works with Chrome OS, it works with Windows, and it works with Mac OS. And if you've got the Documate software, those are the 3 compatible operating systems to use. If you want to use something else like the IPEVO visualizer software, well, you can run it on whatever the IPEVO visualizer software works with. It works with anything, and it works really, really well. Now let's talk about the camera. It is a 13 megapixel camera. It does have a Sony sensor in it, so yes, it's all good there. You can take still photos up to 4K, and they look absolutely fantastic. Here's another one. Yes, I am beautiful. Yes, I am. And yeah, there's absolutely no problems with the camera. It does not exactly do 30 frames per second, as you guys were easily able to see in the previous portions of the video. However, if you're using this as a document camera, you're probably not going all out with 30 frames per second anyways. It's also very noticeable because the other cameras that I'm using in here are running at 60 frames per second. So there is that. Yeah, definitely not full 30 frames per second, but it does get pretty close as long as you don't have a bunch of other things running at the same time. I like the default out-of-the-box experience. I like the microphones a lot. They've got some pretty good noise canceling built in here. And yeah, the microphone sounds really, really nice. I love that microphones have gotten so good over the past couple of years. This by far has a better microphone than any of the other InSwan document cameras. So if you are looking for something with a good microphone that you're going to be recording videos of, yeah, this Flip 4 is probably the way to go. One more positive before I get into the negatives. I love that you can keep the USB wrapped up inside here, and it's nice and protected, and it just goes in there very well. It's not dangling out or anything. That's a very good thing. None of the other InSwan document cameras had anything like that. I basically just wrap it around the outside of my INS2 at work. And yeah, this one, you got the cable hidden and protected, so it's got that going for it. Now let's talk about the negatives, and really I only have one, and it's this right here, the base. It is nicely weighted. It's very well balanced. You can see here I've got the camera at kind of a strange angle, and it's holding it up straight. It's working. It's doing its job. But it's also really big. I don't like having a base this big because in my classroom, I have my document camera sitting up on something and leaning down like so I can get as much of it as I can in one spot. This right here is a little bit too big. So yeah, I've got myself a nice pencil box. The pencil box only goes to about there, so it's got this part hanging off, and I worry that a student might come by and knock that or something. It hadn't happened yet, but it could happen. That's just one of my worries about having a base this large. Like maybe if this part here was snipped a little bit, and maybe this part was maybe thicker, I don't know, but then it wouldn't have quite as much charm as it does. I mean, as it is, being able to fold it up like this is pretty spectacular. And I do like that the base does fully cover the USB port, or the USB cord. But, I don't know, I think that's really the only thing that I found that I was like, not a big fan of that, is it kind of dangles off the edge of my pencil case when I've got this thing sitting on my desk and actually using it in my classroom. Will everybody be putting theirs on a pencil case? Probably not. Could I, in fact, turn my pencil case long ways and put this on there? I didn't think of that until just now, so I may have solved my only issue. So as with every InSwan document camera I have looked at in the past, I have no problems recommending this. The Flip 4 is definitely my favorite out of the 4 that I have tried. I loved the INS1. I did purchase that one for myself. I used it in my classroom for years. It is still being used today because I donated it to an art teacher when I decided to finally start using my INS2. The INS3 I gave it to a YouTuber who made videos for her crafts, and she used that for her channel quite a bit because the INS3, it had like a little mobile scope thing and you could move it all over the place. That was pretty cool, but it just wasn't something I needed for my class. This, however, is pretty freaking great. I am very, very happy with the INS Flip 4. I like that they added the flip into it, the Flip 4, because that's what it does. It flips open. Plus, it gives a little more character to have a real name instead of just INS1, INS2, INS3. INS Flip 4. Definitely recommend it. Check down there in the description for all of the links. And yeah, I think I even have a discount code for you. So I would definitely check that out. Rhino out.